Welcome to LegacyCast, your source for hearing from top influencers, industry experts, and successful business owners who are telling their unique story about life, values, goals, business strategies, and the various causes they are so passionate about. Future generations will come to be impacted by what is happening today, whether positive or negative, and our mission is to focus on what is going to affect change for the better. Hosted each weekday by James Snow, a former U.S. Army combat medic, now founder and principal advisor of James Advisors Group, a full-service financial planning firm in North Texas. This is LegacyCast. Welcome, LegacyCast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, coming to you from North Texas. And I have a good friend and incredible veteran here on the program today as a guest, Adrianne Phillips. She is the president with SAVI Vets. And, they're doing tons and tons of great things for our military, transitioning military veterans that are already out there back in the world. Doing tons of things for the community, which I love to bring light to as much as possible. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and officially welcome Adrianne onto the program. Welcome, Adrianne.
Thank you so much, James, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's a pleasure and honor to have you on the program. You and I have talked off and on, informally for I guess maybe a year or so by now. But I'm glad to actually get you here on the horn with the podcast, so that the rest of the world can get to know the amazing stuff that you're doing as well. Now, before you actually went live with me, we were kind of chatting about some of the stuff that you've got going on, and before getting into the stuff of the program itself, I just wanted to take a chance to kind of mention some of these incredible things that you've got going on, because you're partnering with 23rd Veteran and Active Valor, doing the Nearly Naked Ruck March that's out west. You're in California, so it's out in your area. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, we're super excited to be connected with these two amazing organizations. They are both veteran-founded and veteran-ran nonprofit organizations, and they have some incredible missions. Mike Waldron is the founder and ED of 23rd Veteran, based out of Minnesota, and they do these events called the Nearly Naked Ruck March, which we're excited to have here, bringing out to the West Coast for the first time. February 9th, we'll be in San Diego, Fiesta Island. We will be doing a 10-mile ruck march out there. And then February 16th, we will be doing it in Los Angeles at Griffith Park. Amazing scenery. It is a family-friendly event, and we get to raise funds for 3 great nonprofit organizations that are really having an incredible impact on the veteran community. So we're super excited. We definitely want to get some great veterans and supporters out there to participate and really show how we can bring our community together to have an incredible impact.
Yeah, that's an amazing partnership that you've got going with 23rd Veteran and Active Valor. There's a lot of, in this area in North Texas, I'll see some of the Marine Corps groups, doing some of their Silky hikes, and so having the Ruck March out there in California would be, it's just an amazing thing. Yeah, I'm certainly not fit enough to do a 10 mile ruck anymore. I've long since got out of shape, but that's a great thing that you guys got going, and certainly wonderful weather there and on the West Coast to be able to do that.
Right, and one of the beauties is, James, is that if anybody wants to participate but cannot be physically present or has any level of limitation, there is a way for you to get involved online as well. So you don't actually have to be here in order to show your support and to get involved with this event. So there's definitely some great opportunities in a virtual environment to still participate.
Oh, that's awesome. And is that something that people can find through your website, or is that through 23rd Veterans website directly?
Through 23rd Veterans, certainly. And we are going to be hosting the event on our website here shortly. We should have that up within the next week or so. But for an ease of process, definitely 23rdveteran.org. Under the Nearly Naked Ruck March, you will see both San Diego and LA listed, and people can register to participate in each of the respective teams. We do have our SAVI team that is going to be created. And so they can sign up under our team, or they can sign up as a volunteer, depending on how they want to get involved.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Certainly look forward to that, taking off and, seeing that on the website so that we can shoot as many of our listeners over there to you for that. Now, you also were mentioning that your organization specifically, SAVI, had launched about mid-month last month your 10K Strong campaign. Is that right?
Absolutely. So our goal here at SAVI is to reach 10,000 veterans within our first year. So we launched our 10K Strong campaign, which all we're asking is for a small contribution of $10 a month to help us reach our goal of 10,000 veterans that we're engaging with. Again, within our first year, we did launch that about mid-November, and we are going to be taking that into the new year. And I'm so happy to report that 100% of everything that is fundraised and contributed will go directly towards the support of our veteran community.
That's amazing. Yeah, there's so many different organizations out there that just can't even make that kind of a claim. So that's kudos to you for that. First off, because that's huge to be able to have that kind of a contribution level. But then also just the number of 10K Strong. That's huge because
right.
there's so much need out there. And when I was introducing you, just mentioning all that you're doing with your organization, that's just part and parcel. To why I feel what SAVI is doing is such a noble thing and such a notable thing that people should be aware of, and be involved in. If you don't know where to put your money, don't know where to put your energy, your organization could certainly give them a destination for both.
Absolutely, and we certainly appreciate your support. It is really incredible to be able to say that, because so many times things get lost in overhead and marketing and all these other costs that really don't directly impact our veterans. So again, I am so happy to report that 100% of that is going directly towards our programs and directly to where it matters most, which is to support our transitioning service members and veteran community.
Yeah, that is a huge thing. Now, I'm kind of getting into our podcast stuff for today. What we were sort of talking about here is the introduction, the Ruck March and your 10K Strong campaign. All of those things really are it's indicative what, as far as I'm concerned, of what a legacy is. What you're doing, Adrianne, with your business, both on a personal level and a business level, you're creating through your company, a legacy in of itself. And that's something I'm very passionate about. Obviously, since I started this program, so that other people can talk about their legacies. But so many people, you could take 100 people in a room and ask each of them what having a legacy means, and you would get 100 different answers. Some people, it's what they're doing in giving. Some people, it's educational, what they're teaching their children or teaching the next generation. Some people, it's having that financial savings for their family. On and on, stories about your family, your genealogy. That's something that's huge in my family, is genealogy. And so, that's part of the legacy is even, knowing where you came from and, kind of explaining who you are and why you do things the way that you do. Right. So when you're thinking about a legacy, though, what does that on a personal level mean for you?
On a personal level, my legacy really is to always add value to anybody that I come across. Veteran, non-veteran, it doesn't matter. My goal and personal mission has always been to find ways to add value to each individual that I engage with, whether that means just making their day a little bit brighter, whether that's facilitating a connection that can maybe help add some value to their process, maybe satisfying a need that they have, answering a question. It can be something very small, or it can be on a larger scale, but always looking to add value to each engagement and connection that I make on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. This is really my goal, is that I am bringing that to the forefront and always asking the question, what can I do for you?
Yeah, and that's such a well put answer, because when we're adding value, we're investing in someone else, and we're putting all of that, we're putting that good energy out there, if you will. And as some people could say, you're creating a legacy whether you do it in a good way or a bad way. It's still a legacy. Right. It's just are you creating a good one? And, if we're putting value into someone, and making that personal investment with people, that certainly is making a good legacy in that, because you're able to empower them and give them what they need to carry their mission forward. And then in turn, they're able to create their legacy, and it all sort of, it becomes, synergistic, and as some people say, you pay it forward and you get paid back. It's very much that way.
Absolutely.
I part of what you and I have done is, passing some of those contacts and resources back and forth. And, up until now, that's kind of how our interaction has been. But, the way I look at it, having a big Rolodex of people, is only worth, it only has its worth when you're actually using it and giving it out. So that's the value of having those contacts, is to be able to give them to someone freely, or to be able to give, freely the information that somebody needs, or turning them onto a resource, like maybe Small Business Administration or SCORE or Veterati for those that do or receive mentoring, different organizations of that sort. And then your organization as well, for people that are in transition and need to know who to reach out to.
Absolutely. Knowledge is meant to be shared. And the more that we can help kind of bridge these gaps and draw those links so that the path is a lot clearer to the individuals that we're engaging with, I think the better off that we'll all be. I certainly believe in the trampoline effect, that what you put out is what you will get back. And that's certainly not the reason that I do it, but there is this great positive energy and flow that's created when you're doing things just for the reason of being a good person and wanting to help somebody else out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And people that know me well do know that I'm also a person of faith, and that's something that's written on very very literally and very specifically. Is that we're to be stewards, and we're to be servants, and all that we receive, we're stewards of that until we hand it off to the next person. And so, to me, that's a very real meaning of that is, we receive these things and we're holding on to them until we're able to give them away, and then it multiplies itself. And the more good that you're doing, the more good that you're given to do good with. And so it builds on itself.
Absolutely.
So do you feel like it's an important thing that people actively consider what they're doing on a daily basis that pays into their legacy?
Oh, I think that it's very important. Intentionality is everything. It really is. And I think a lot of times we go through life, sometimes on autopilot, and we do things not really understanding why we're doing them, or because somebody told us to do it, or because everybody else is doing it, or whatever the reason is. But there isn't that kind of thought or intention that's behind it. But when you're able to really align your actions, not only with your values, but with your objectives and your intentions, things just seem to flow a lot more naturally. Opportunities just open up themselves to you, and it just allows for you to go through life in a way that's a lot more with ease, if you will. There's not as much tension when you're just doing things without really understanding why you're doing them. And then you get these results without even intending to get them. So I think it's very important to focus on what your objectives are, what your goals are, and why you do the things that you do on a day-to-day basis.
No, very, very eloquently. So when you're thinking about your views of legacy and what your own plans for that, we'll look at it kind of from a business standpoint. How do your actions in your business play a part into your legacy building?
Well, I think that it's all a matter of understanding what your capacity is and where you're at in your life in order to be able to do certain things. I know when I first entered the for-profit sector, I knew absolutely nothing about business at all. I knew nothing about how to start or where to go to, or even as a veteran, what my benefits were. And I'm an individual that has been professionally trained in what, benefits are available to us as veterans. And going into business, I had no clue what my benefits, resources, or, support that was out there, what was available. So I knew that I wanted to eventually have an impact on the veteran community, but starting out grassroots, I'm like, I'm not in a position to do that because I don't even understand business. So I had to go into a completely different marketplace, had nothing to do with veterans. My for-profit business is a travel management company. Again, nothing to do with veteran services, and kind of use that as a guinea pig to making plenty of mistakes and growing not only as an individual, but as a businesswoman, as a CEO, and understanding what the responsibilities were to, leading an organization and really executing on a vision and idea. And so I did that, and it took me several years to really get a handle on everything. But at that time, I absolutely made a commitment that as soon as my company was profitable, that I would reinvest and have the impact on the veteran community that I really wanted to do. That was my main goal starting out in business. And so that's what led me to SAVI. And so SAVI has really been a channel for me to be able to give back and, using my for-profit company to really aid and assist in being able to execute on that mission is ultimately what we've created, because now my company covers all of our overhead so that, again, all of the contribution and support that we gain from the community can go directly towards the impact of our veterans. And I am so excited to be able to be in a position now to not only give back, but really to share my knowledge and my experience, because again, I made plenty of mistakes, and it certainly was not a journey without bumps and bruises and, a lot of different learning experiences, to say the least. And so now I'm just happy to be able to give back and to share that knowledge and to also be able to have an impact through our nonprofit organization.
So when you're talking about both your for-profit business and the nonprofit, what would maybe a couple things be that keep you up at night with running the businesses, or are there really none of those?
Oh, I wish there was none of those. That would be great. Honestly, what keeps me up at night is just, making sure that we are delivering a service in a way that's going to make a difference, and knowing how to identify when change is needed and when to really focus on what you already have in the forefront. And it's always a very delicate balance, because the marketplace is constantly changing. Technology has just blown open the door to the way that we do business, the way that we engage with one another. And so always trying to make sure that we are not only delivering a quality service, but delivering it in a way that makes sense and that can actually be applied. And that is really my biggest focus, because there is so much information right now that's available to us, and a lot of it is very convoluted. It's not very clear. And so our goal is simplicity and effectiveness. And so that certainly does keep me up at night. It's just making sure that, again, how is this information being received? Is there maybe a better way that we can, package it together or deliver it in a way that's going to, make a difference? And so those types of questions are something that I'm constantly not only asking myself, but also asking my team to really encourage that innovation and find even better ways. We may be good now, but let's find even better ways to be more effective and to reach more veterans.
So do you believe it's important that people in business create some sort of business plan and other key strategies in order to keep their business basically afloat and operating successfully?
Yes, and yes. I will tell you, I spent about 8 months in strategy and development alone. That means not public facing, not engaging with anybody other than just kind of general market research. I am the absolute number one proponent of strategies and having things on paper, having things written down. I have a strategy for everything, whether it's a business plan, a marketing strategy, a brand strategy, a fundraising strategy. I have strategies for everything. And it's not necessarily about the strategy itself, more than it is about, again, conceptualizing all of your ideas into one place so that you can visually see it and also have accountability. Accountability is so important. And it's very hard to establish accountability without having a strategy in place. If you don't know what you're working towards, then how in the world are you going to measure your success? How are you going to measure your progress? How are you going to know that you're moving in the right direction? So if there was anything that I would recommend to any business owners out there, anybody looking to start a business or really looking to execute on any type of vision, is get a strategy, get a plan together. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's probably going to be changed 101 times, but you have to start somewhere and just bring your ideas together to really have a set plan and set, different markers so that, again, if I'm going to be starting here, where is it that I need to end up, and what does the path to get there look like?
Yeah, I like how you're putting that. It reminds me of the analogy that when the shuttles and other space vehicles were used when they were traveling to the moon, that 99% of the time going there, they were having to do course corrections. But if they didn't have a plan, they wouldn't have even known where to start and where to point, and probably would have ended up, at Jupiter or something, because they had to know at least, where to start, and then, do all the course corrections. And I hear a lot of people when I'm talking and coaching and counseling that, they say, well, I'm just, I don't see the need for that. I'm in a service-based industry. I don't need to have that business plan. And it surprises me every time because, to me, it's like having a roadmap when you're going on vacation, that you might have a general idea of where you're headed, but you also need to know, where the construction is happening at, so you don't take that road. Maybe if a bridge is out, you need to know that with your GPS so you don't drive off the bridge, and things of that sort. And so it's not that you don't have to make corrections, and it's not that you don't have to make them all the time, but it at least gives you, an idea of where you're headed. And I like that you were pointing out, that adjustment part, and then the accountability, especially because we must be accountable to ourselves. And that plan does keep us accountable because you then at least have an idea. And true, it may change on a daily basis to where you thought you were going one direction, you have to make some adjustments. But if you don't have that together, then you're not making adjustments. You're just flying by the seat of your pants and making assumptions, not adjustments. And that's a huge thing. So I'm glad that you're of that frame of mind.
Absolutely. And another good use point for that too is, especially when you start getting people on your team, and you're sharing your vision and you're sharing your goals. If you don't have a center point of location where all this information is stored, then you are pretty much subject to having to repeat, what those plans are, what those objectives are on an ongoing basis, because everybody's going to be relying on you to try to figure out where you're heading. Versus if you have a plan together, you can easily share that information with your team or, whoever is going to be a part of that process to say, this is exactly what it looks like. Let's talk about it. Like, let me get your input. Let me get your perspective. And again, make improvement, make tweaks so that now that you're adding some different skills and background, you can be even more effective at executing that plan and that strategy.
Right. Well put. So why do you think, just from your experience, that so many entrepreneurs either fail or give up when they're trying to build a business?
I think there's a couple of things. First and foremost, lack of a plan is definitely one of them. I feel like a lot of hours, money, effort is just exhausted when you don't have a solid and concrete vision put together and a way and some measurable actions that you can take to start working towards it. That's first and foremost. Secondly is capacity. I think a lot of times people get very married to the idea of a business, but don't really sit down and evaluate their capacity to A, commit to the vision, and B, execute the vision. So what's available to you right now, whether it's time, whether it's finances, whether it's personnel, whether it's resources, whatever it is that you have in your arsenal to be able to take a business forward, you have to take an inventory of that in the very beginning stages and be brutally honest with yourself to say, you know what, am I really in a place to work 60 hours a week in order to execute this vision? Am I really in a place to take on 15, 20, 30 new clients, this month? Am I in a place to be able to spend, I don't know, $5, $10, $15,000, whatever it's going to take to, invest in marketing, to invest into a website, to invest into design, my logo, my, everything else that comes along with it. you have to know what it is required of you in order to take that forward. And then B, do you have the capacity to meet those needs? And I think that the commitment aspect of this is probably the biggest, I guess, surprise to people, is that a lot of times, because of social media and because of these other things, we see the results of people's work, but we don't see the journey. And so we automatically assume that, Rome is built in a day, right? That they just popped up out of nowhere, they were super successful, and they created all of this overnight. Not really knowing that in a business, the average business, in order to truly be successful, have a good working model, have a good solid team in place, it really takes an estimated about 3 to 5 years. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. So again, having those realistic expectations, knowing where you're at from a personal level, from a business level, knowing where your knowledge is, knowing what you're going to need to bring to the forefront before you even get started, what that process is going to look like, and just having that plan in place to make sure that if you are committing to this, what does that process look like to make sure that you are taking the necessary steps to get there?
Yeah, it's good points. And something I'd actually like to add to your bandwidth part of it is, even a lot of people, when they're starting their business and they're going through, they maybe either have or have not done their business plan, assuming that they have, but are going through that process, but they haven't discovered really if the product that they have to offer is even needed where they're trying to offer it. And that's also part of that bandwidth, that is what you have to offer something that people want. And I've seen so many cases where, someone feels like, they've come up with the next best mousetrap, but forgot to check if they even have any mice. And that's kind of the scenario that some people run into. And it doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. It's just, you don't want to, for example, here in Texas, we don't need to have, really, really extremely warm coats like what they have in Alaska. Stuff that they wear in Alaska wouldn't work here in Texas.
Right.
In Alaska, they wouldn't want to have our windbreakers. It wouldn't do them any good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, is your product really useful? Where you're trying to market it. And so, all of that, again, kind of comes into the bandwidth, which you're spot on about.
Right. No, definitely agree. Market research is certainly important.
Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about your experience in the businesses, you're mentioning kind of some of the roadblocks that you ran into, and the struggles that you had, especially with your for-profit business, as you were learning through it. What are some of the roadblocks that you discovered, and then resources you would recommend to somebody that's getting started?
Well, first and foremost, I will say that I had a really good direct comparison of having a business plan and not having a business plan. So my for-profit company very much started at a time where I felt like it was a necessity. And
Mm-hmm.
there was very little planning, so to speak, when I officially went independent. And so a lot of time, energy, and money was certainly wasted just trying to figure out what the plan was, because I didn't have that in place. And so that was one of the biggest issues going forward when I first started, was I didn't have a baseline for business. I didn't have a plan in place, nor did I know how to even start, kind of presenting that question to say, what is it that I need as a business owner to get this going? So after a lot of money that was spent, and most of it was in marketing, not understanding the marketing arena, and just even using the word marketing, it's such a broad term. And I think that a lot of us make the mistake that thinking that as long as we market it well, that it's going to be a success. Despite not having a plan, despite not doing any market research, if I get the right marketing channel, that's going to be my golden ticket to making this successful. And after, again, losing out on a lot of money and realizing very quickly that that wasn't the answer, I had to kind of bring it back to just, step one, and really starting to look at what is it that I need from a knowledge standpoint to be able to make better decisions with my money and with my business. And so what I ended up doing was starting out by looking into skills-based development opportunities. And so I actually started out, I reached out to the Small Business Administration And they actually have a Veterans Outreach Center, and they provide you pretty much a la carte classes that you can sign up for that have a broad range of topics, anything from social media management to government contracting to how to use QuickBooks. The list goes on and on and on. And so that was my first point to say, you know what, I'm going to educate myself. I need to figure out how to understand business and what is going to be required to really take this forward in a way that's going to be successful. And so I started really focusing on just developing myself. I ended up taking a course in neurolinguistic programming as well as hypnosis. SBA was a really, really great tool for me. I ended up reaching out to SCORE, which provides mentors in the business space. And I know that there's several other programs that do that. And then the next thing that I really started focusing on was efficiency. And some of the tools and things that I implemented to really make me more efficient was, first and foremost, an online booking calendar. It's so funny because now it seems like it's pretty commonly used, but when I first started, it was like the cool tool, if you will. And that alone, oh my gosh, just opened up my ability to be efficient from a day-to-day perspective, because now I actually had a schedule that people could plug into, and I could schedule out my calls. And then even adding time on my calendar to do certain tasks, like setting aside a time to network, setting aside a time to educate myself or to learn certain skills, or to figure out, QuickBooks, or to figure out, online marketing channels, or whatever it is. I would put everything on my calendar so that my day would be a lot more organized, and that I had specific blocks of time set aside to do specific tasks. And that definitely increased my efficiency, tenfold. I can't even tell you, just having an online booking calendar and using my schedule to really plug in intentional tasks really made me a lot more proficient in what I was doing.
I would take it that you feel like time management is a huge thing to plug into, right?
Absolutely. It's so important.
Yeah, I found that time management for me is probably not one of my strongest suits because I have that shiny object syndrome, which I guess a lot of people in the finance world have, because we're running at 100 miles an hour, and so
right.
Just for me, just keeping my focus on one task sometimes is both a good thing and a bad thing, because I can stay really focused once I get going, but then I forget about everything else. Or as I'm working on something, all these other squirrels pop up around me, and I start chasing squirrels instead of chasing what I need to be chasing. And so
right.
Time management is certainly a huge thing. And likewise, having that online calendar has been it's been a godsend for me, because I personally don't work with an assistant, and so that was sort of my virtual assistant, was putting all of my calendar out there and just setting it up, and also putting in a subdomain to each of my specific calendars. Like the podcast calendar has one subdomain, my regular calendar has another one,
Right.
so I can just give somebody a very short URL and they can go straight to it, and so it just makes it so simple to be able to do that.
Agreed. And I will tell you that this shiny object syndrome is definitely something that, I deal with as well. And so one of the things that I've had to do in order to help eliminate that is make sure that I only open up the web page or the application that's necessary to complete that task, as opposed to having, 15 different web pages open at once, or notifications popping up in the background. I close out everything else, and I make sure that only the necessary tools that are needed for that task are open, and that I'm not looking at anything else. Otherwise, it would be a constant, you start something else pops up. Oh, wait, let me go do that real quick. But it's never real quick, because it ends up distracting you potentially for, a couple hours, and now you're completely derailed from what you were working on. And so I've definitely had to implement some, I kind of call them the bumpers, on the sides here, so that I'm not encouraged to go astray and start doing other things that I'm not supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little convicted here, because you're talking about minimizing applications. And I was just noticing, as you said that, I have 6 applications and 5 different monitors. And so and that's not even counting the web pages I have running in one of those, which is like 8 different web pages. So
oh my goodness.
I've got way too much going at once. And so I'll see these little things pop up on the left and the right and all around, because they're all up in a matrix right in front of me. And so things are popping up all the time, and I hear these little tones going off all the time, and the rabbits start running around the room. And so I could probably use some of your coaching on that. So how would your personal values and belief systems play a role in your business? And then how would you encourage other people to incorporate theirs into their business or not?
Well, my values are at the forefront of everything that I do, business or not. And like I said, my main personal mission has always been to add value to anybody that I come across. And so I think that that's certainly seen in both of my businesses. On the travel side of the house, we're always looking to maximize efficiency for businesses when they're executing events. And then obviously on the nonprofit side, we are very much focused on providing federal benefits education to our transitioning service members. So it's all very much value-based. And, the beauty is on the SAVI side, we don't charge for any of our services. And so it's really important that we are asserting what the value is very early on, because a lot of times sometimes they don't view free in the way that they do something that's paid. And it's very interesting, because if you really kind of break down the things that are valuable in our life, they're normally not the things that we actually pay for. So for me, it's important that we are making sure that the value is very, very transparent, and that that they know that we are here simply to support them. We're here to serve as a sounding board and to be kind of that voice of guidance, if you will, through the transition process, something that can be very stressful and that can cost people a lot of time. And, it really is a full-time job within itself, in addition to everything else that, you have to manage while you're going through that. Now, in terms of my team, I always encourage people to submit their perspectives and ideas, because this is certainly not something that can be done alone. This takes a community, it takes a village, it takes each and every one of us that is a part of this process to really bring our mission forward. And so everybody has different values, but I think fundamentally, anybody that has worked within our organization and that has contributed in any form or fashion really just wants to make a difference. They want to have an impact in some way, shape, or form. And so you see that through the work that they do. You see that through the tireless hours that they contribute, going above and beyond when they don't have to, and just making sure that they're looking out for our veteran community and seeing if there's a way that they can plug in a resource or a connection that's going to help that individual execute on their plans, their objectives, and really what their dreams are after they get out of service. So I have been very blessed to be around some amazing individuals that I get to work with each and every day. And, their values are certainly are shown through the actions that they take and through the contribution that they make with our organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you were transitioning out of service, what kind of hurdles did you have to overcome when transitioning and then also starting your businesses?
Well, I didn't start my businesses until much, much later after I got out of service. I mean, when I first got out, business was probably the furthest thing from my mind. I was just trying to figure out how I was going to make it to the next day. And I actually started my process about 6 months prior to getting out. So I thought in my mind that I had plenty of time. Unfortunately, I didn't understand all of the different components that would impact my transition, like community reintegration and finding purpose and getting my healthcare set up and even just fundamentally figuring out what it was that I wanted to do. I mean, that question in and within itself felt like such a large task to take on, because nobody had ever asked me that before. Being in the military, they're not telling you or asking you what your dreams and hopes are or what your ambitions are. You're there to serve and you're there to defend your country. And so that was my main purpose. And then after getting out and not having that purpose anymore, I had to find out what my new purpose was going to be. And that was certainly a very difficult question to ask, not really understanding how to ask that or what that looked like. So I struggled. I definitely struggled quite a bit getting out. And it wasn't until, years later that I even really began to understand that business could be a viable means of supporting myself and making an income. And I started it out as, again, I felt like at the time it was a necessity. My kind of career and everything was taking a bit of a different path, and I wanted to find a way to have a little more freedom and independence. And so that's what led me into the business realm. It was never like this super intention of, oh, I want to be a CEO and I want to, have this big business. That was never the goal. It was just more so finding a way to implement something that I really enjoyed doing, which was travel, and making that into a viable source of, income. How could I transfer one into the other?
So was not being part of the military community also part of transition struggle that you ran into? I hear that from quite a bit, and that also was part of my struggle. Was being part of the family, and then all of a sudden the next day you're not, and I didn't know where I fit anymore. Was that part of your struggle?
Absolutely. It's definitely, it's the loss of identity. There's a pride that comes along with wearing the uniform, and then even knowing, being on deployment and just being in the military period, I made some of the best friendships that I've ever made in my entire life. And then we had some of the closest bonds. You're sharing an experience that you'll never share with any other person, and being willing to take a bullet for a complete stranger simply because you are serving together. That speaks volumes. That's a bond and a connection that, is very, very difficult to duplicate in the civilian sector. And there's a certain background and understanding that's there to say, you know what, you are my brother, you are my sister, and I am willing to risk my life for you. That again, when you're, kind of your main goal is profit, you don't get that same level of connection and support, if you will. So it definitely was a loss of tribe, a loss of camaraderie, and a loss of identity to say, I am no longer in the military, and I no longer have my peers, my battle buddies next to me anymore to really provide me with that support and understanding that I had become accustomed to.
Has your nonprofit enabled you to regain some of that?
Oh, absolutely. I've been fortunate enough that, before SAVI, I've been in veteran services now for about 12 years. And so I've had the opportunity of not only supporting veterans, but engaging with veterans, almost on a daily basis. And so as soon as I got involved in veteran services, that definitely satisfied that need and that camaraderie and that, that family that I was looking for. It was just like I had never left. And so now with SAVI and engaging with transitioning service members, it brings me back to my own transition and all the lessons that I learned going through that process that I can now, ultimately give to other people and hopefully ease their transition so that it's not as difficult, not as complicated, and that they're very well prepared once they get into the civilian sector.
Now, when you started your different businesses, was it obvious to you that you're going to start that business, or you kind of stumble upon it one day that you decide, this is going to be what I do?
So the travel side of the house, I will say that I was planning and coordinating travel for friends and family before I knew there was a potential to make money off of it. So it was more so that somebody made it obvious to me more than it was obvious to me, by myself independently. So I was booking travel and doing it again, just kind of as a, just to help. It was something that I enjoyed doing. I love traveling. And so one day my friend came up to me and she's like, that this is actually a business. Like you can actually charge people to do this. And I literally had no idea. I was like, oh, wow. Like people actually need these things. And again, this is like before, Expedia and Priceline and all these other large websites are what they are today. It certainly wasn't as glamorous back then. And so it was brought to me as a potential avenue to make an income. And I was like, okay, well, let me give this a shot. Now, I will say that SAVI was a lot more intentional because, starting my for-profit business, if you recall, I said that at that time, I had made the commitment that as soon as I was profitable, that I would reinvest and give back to the veteran community. So SAVI has been probably in the back of my mind for the last, 10 years or so, but I didn't really have the ability, nor did I feel like I was in a place to really execute it until 2017. So it's been about almost a year and a half now since the idea really said, okay, we're not only going to have this as an idea, but this is actually going to become a business, and we're going to start really taking the necessary steps to make that happen.
Now, is there any other kind of profession other than what you're doing with the travel and then SAVI that you'd want to try at some point?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't know. I feel like, because of these two companies, there's been certainly other services that I have provided and that I have gotten involved in and that I currently support, whether it's business development, negotiations. Those are really two primary areas that I excel heavily in. And so I try to use those skills to apply them to other projects and supporting other people's goals and objectives as well. I don't know if I would take it as far to say that I would venture off and make it a full-time business. I really am happy where I am with the two businesses that I have. So it's tough for me to answer that question. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see what's to come. I always leave the door open because, life is forever evolving and you just never know where the path is going to take you. But I'm in a really good place right now. And so for now, I'm just focused on, just making these two companies as successful as possible and having the most amount of impact that I can.
Very good. Outstanding. So what would you say is your greatest character strength?
My greatest character strength would be just my ability to connect people and find people's strengths very, very quickly. I think that I'm always looking for ways to help facilitate a fruitful connection. And again, that adding value aspect of me that's always on the forefront of every conversation and every engagement that I have. But I also have a very unique ability to identify where people's skills and strengths are in a way that's going to not only help them be successful, but also to potentially contribute to somebody else's goals and visions as well, so that we can establish a collaboration and really take things forward.
Okay. And what would you say is your greatest weakness then? Kind of the flip side of that.
Oh, my greatest weakness would certainly be just probably giving more of myself than I sometimes have. That ability to, or that desire to always be, be available, be of assistance, be a resource, be a connection. Sometimes the personal bank or that energy that I have just within me, it gets depleted very quickly. And, I sometimes don't always put myself first. And so I definitely, again, going back to the schedule, I have to literally schedule time to really focus on self-care. And so I would say that it's still a work in progress, still a work in progress, but something that I am very much aware that I have to do. Being a disabled veteran, there's some personal matters that I always have to be aware of and, just concerned for my health and things like that. So keeping that as a part of the consideration when I commit to things or when I go above and beyond for certain people, I always have to be cognizant that there is a personal health component and a personal self-care component that I also have to be, give attention and priority to.
Sure. So when you're doing your brainstorming, are you the kind of person that has a special place that you go to do your brainstorming?
Absolutely. So I have a dedicated office in my house, and I do not do business anywhere other than my office. This is this is the kind of creative portal, if you will, the designated area to not only work, but to create and strategize and plan and execute. And so I don't bring it into the bedroom. I don't bring it into the living room or any other areas that are supposed to be, for family or for disconnect time or anything like that. So I always keep my office for business purposes, and this is where I come to make sure that I'm, bringing in the ideas and executing on the ideas.
Yeah, good stuff. So if you were to describe your day for someone that's maybe starting in a business and wanted to, we'll take, for example, the travel business, since that's probably a little easier to do. If you describe your day at a very high level, what that looks like to somebody, what would that what would that sound like?
So my day is actually very, very structured. I am an avid meditator, so I meditate twice a day, every day. I'm also I work out 5 days a week, and so I make sure that that's certainly a part of my plan. I also do intermittent fasting, about 16 hours a day. So I normally don't have my first meal, so to speak, until about 2 p.m. And so things like that. There's certain disciplines that I have throughout my day that are very much, it's an everyday thing. There's no days off when it comes to that. But that for me is really what keeps kind of the machine going, if you will. So meditation, again, intermittent fasting. Certainly some level of physical activity, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's actually going to the gym. It just kind of depends on the day. And then also making sure that I'm disconnecting a good 2 hours before going to bed. That's another important thing to me. I definitely work off of my calendar. So my calendar, it pretty much dictates everything that I do throughout the day, whether it's a phone call, whether it's work productivity, whether it's networking, whether it's even brainstorming and creation, that's scheduled into my day as well. But everything definitely has a time slot, so to speak. And but once the day is done, I disconnect and I do not plug in or look at emails or do anything else within that 2 hours before bed, because if I do, then I will never be able to relax and really get the quality of sleep that I need.
Sure. So in winding up our time, I have a question that's kind of interesting. It's my trivia question for you, and that would be, if you can tell me something about you that most people don't know.
Oh, that's a good one. Something about me that most people don't know. I would say the fact that I'm really, when it comes down to it, I'm pretty introverted. I do a lot from a business perspective. I do a lot of extroverted type of activities like networking and presentations and things like that. But really, in my personal life, I really just value quiet time. I do. I like to just kind of sit and be and not really have a schedule, not have a plan, not have an agenda, just really enjoy being present and observing and, enjoying the time that I have. So I would say that, just kind of naturally, I do have a lot of introverted tendencies.
Yeah, I can relate with that. I'm very much an introvert, and so when I do lives on social media or the podcast even, or when I'm doing seminars and workshops, that's my therapy for my introvertedness, because I have to completely almost become a whole different person, in some sense, to be able to do that, because otherwise, I want to crawl into a hole in the corner and sort of duck my head down, do the turtle thing. So I can definitely relate. Well, Adrianne, it's been great pleasure and honor to have you here with the program today. And before I let you go, though, I want to make sure that everyone has ways to get a hold of you. Both your website for your two businesses, social media accounts, how they can get a hold of you there, if you prefer email or what have you. So if you can just give us some of that information, that way everybody knows how to get a hold of you and take advantage of what you have out there for them.
Yeah. So first and foremost, SAVI. You guys can find us online at SAVI Vets. That's SAVIVETS.org. All of our social media handles is at SAVI Vets. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're definitely on all of those platforms. And our number, you can certainly give us a call. I highly encourage it. 844-400-SAVI or 7284. And then on the travel side of the house, it's just Travelers Q, and that's Q as in Queen.com. Same thing, social media channels, Travelers, and then .Q is our handle. And then our number over there is 302-660-3280. So certainly you guys can reach me on any of those channels, and I'm always welcome to talk to anybody, whether a veteran, supporter, travel need, doesn't matter, reach out to me, and I would love to talk to you.
Excellent. So everybody take her up on it, because she's got a lot to offer, and all of those skills and expertise is certainly something that is there for you to take advantage of. So do that. And Adrianne, I appreciate your time again. And as I love telling all of my friends that come on the program, I will see you around the bend, my friend.
Thank you so much, James. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You've been listening to Legacy Cast. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to come back next time as we speak with more top influencers, industry experts, and business owners from around the world.